Even if I live forever, I'll never cease to be amazed at how quickly fortunes can change. Just a week ago, I was as happy as can be. My 2 kids are in college and doing great. My wife, Karen, teaches 3rd grade at a local school. She's had the same job since graduating from college 22 years ago. She's blonde, smart, attractive, funny, and beautiful. We got married the summer Karen finished college, and I have never regretted it for a moment. I don't know why she chose me when she could have had any man she wanted, but I'm not complaining. Karen is a wonderful mother and is largely responsible for how well our kids have turned out. I work for Josh and Victor's old-fashioned soda company. Don't worry if you haven't heard of it. It's a family business started by 2 brothers in a garage in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania in 1963. No one really knows where or how they developed their formula, but there isn't a better carbonated soft drink on the planet. The company remained a part-time garage operation until the early 70s. As demand for their product grew, they eventually moved to a larger facility. Today, they employ 450 people and have resisted further expansion, believing that growing too large would compromise the quality of their product. A few weeks ago, Time magazine featured an article about the family and their soda. I now suspect that story is the root of my recent troubles. The magazine emphasized how closely the original family formula is guarded, and near the end, they mentioned me as the head of security. I have worked for Josh and Victor since I left the Army in 1985, gradually working my way up until I was appointed head of security 3 years ago. The title sounds impressive, but the truth is that security was never much of an issue, until that magazine story. It portrayed our soda as a revolutionary product and implied that the secret formula is worth millions. In hindsight, it probably is. When the story made headlines, interest in our product and its production surged noticeably. Suddenly, my once comfortable job became far more demanding. It became clear that we needed to bolster the measures protecting our formula. Last week, to that end, I found myself in Las Vegas attending a trade show focused on corporate security and anti-espionage solutions. I felt a bit like James Bond meeting Q, the gadgets guy, right? I picked up some invaluable ideas and even ordered equipment and software to enhance our company's security. The show wrapped up on Saturday, and by that evening, I was mentally drained from absorbing so much information. Sitting at the hotel bar with a beer, I was simply trying to unwind and expected nothing out of the ordinary. That changed when someone took the seat next to me, and I casually turned to look. I nearly fell off my stool. Sitting beside me was a stunning redhead in a short dress with a low neckline. "Are you going to spend all night staring at the twins, or are you going to buy a girl a drink?" she asked with a dazzling smile. Regaining my composure, I signaled the bartender and bought her a drink, ordering another beer for myself. That was Saturday. Just 3 days later, I found myself fighting to save my career. I arrived home Sunday afternoon and was back at work on Monday morning. By Tuesday morning, I was in my office preparing a report for the board of directors' afternoon meeting. My attention was caught by an email from a Hotmail account with the username bestfriend and several attachments. Curiosity got the better of me, so I opened it. The message was brief, just 2 sentences. I read it a dozen times, barely comprehending its significance but knowing it was crucial. The email read, "Drive to Casey Park at Noonan Park, next to the Black Lincoln near the playground. If you don't, these pictures will be emailed to your boss, wife, kids, parents, and numerous community leaders." With growing trepidation, I opened the attached photos. My stomach knotted, and I felt nauseous. Somehow, someone had taken pictures of me with the redhead. The first photo showed us at the bar, innocent enough in a public place. But the subsequent photos, taken in my hotel room, were explicit and incriminating. My fury surged. How had they been taken in a private room? It was a gross violation of my rights and numerous laws. Then panic set in. What would Karen say if she saw these photos? Worse, what if her parents and her kids saw them? My mind began to grasp the severity of the situation I was thrust into. Clearly, I was being threatened. If these photos were to be exposed, my life could spiral into chaos. The last thing I wanted was for my boss, my kids, and especially Karen, to find out those images even existed. Josh and Victor Brooks were deeply religious men, and everyone under their employment had to adhere to a strict morality clause in their contracts. Over the years, numerous employees had been terminated for behavior deemed detrimental to the company. Some were fired for workplace affairs, others for theft, and one guy was let go for repeatedly lying about being sick when he was actually off fishing. Rumor had it that before firing him, Josh told the man he could understand choosing to fish over work. Josh himself had taken afternoons off during trout season. However, deceit was something Josh couldn't tolerate. Reflecting on my predicament, I realized I needed a strategy for damage control. Why were these photos taken? Why were they emailed to me? Why was I instructed to drive to the park? How could I possibly navigate this mess? How do you put a positive spin on something so damaging? There seemed to be only one plausible reason for this crisis: the damn formula I was responsible for protecting. It had to be at the core of this nightmare. I was likely being maneuvered into revealing it. The biggest problem was I had no idea what the concoction was. I was more of a beer drinker myself. As the security chief, I had access to every part of the facility. Though my adversary might be more intelligent, my ability to infiltrate secured areas could give him the opportunity to hack into computers or access that damned shoebox that held the secret. That had to be why my life was currently unraveling. I checked my watch and saw that I needed to leave within the hour to reach the park by noon. Reluctantly, I picked up my phone and called Josh Brooks, quickly arranging a meeting with him and Victor. At exactly noon, I pulled into the park and parked next to a black Lincoln. Two men were sitting inside, clearly waiting for me. The passenger exited and held the door open, gesturing with a nod for me to get in. As I climbed inside, I scrutinized both men. I had never seen either of them before. "It was wise of you to show up," the man behind the wheel declared. "I've got my laptop ready to send these pictures to every family member, friend, superior, and associate you've ever known. I chose this spot because I can access the hotel's Wi-Fi across the street. One press of the enter key and your life goes up in flames." "Let's get to the point," I retorted. "What do you want to keep those pictures private?" "I like your attitude, Alan," the cock grinned. "That was so easy. You're as much of a safety expert as a woodpecker is a carpenter. I hired a hooker to service you Saturday night, and you went and picked up this redhead and slept with her before the girl I hired for you showed up. It saved me a couple $100, and the girl you had fun with was much better than the one I was going to offer you. The pictures turned out pretty good, don't you think?" "Let's just get this over with," I insisted. "Do you want money for that computer?" "I need to know there aren't any more hard drives with those files on them." "I want money, all right," laughed the man. "But the problem is you don't have nearly enough. I want you to give my friend in the back your ID card and the code to access the more sensitive areas of your company." "What? You think I'll just hand that over? If they find out I gave it to you, I'll be fired, probably sued, and who knows what else." "I can't do that," I stated firmly. "No problem, Alan," he grinned. "I'll just hit this key and you'll be in a world of trouble faster than you can blink." "Wait a minute," I shrieked. "When do you want the code and my ID?" "Right now, dipshit," he snarled. "We won't give you a chance to mess it up. Hand it over to him now and we'll wait here till he gets back. If everything checks out, I'll give you this laptop and you'll never see us again. Your family will never know and we'll all be happy." "He can't just stroll into the building even with the code," I warned. "There are security cameras everywhere. It won't work." "That would usually be the case," agreed my blackmailer, "but on the first Tuesday of the month, everyone in the office is required to attend a meeting with the bosses in the conference room from 1 to 2 to discuss strategy and marketing. The place will be empty except for the guy monitoring the cameras. He's as sharp as a marble. My friend will be in and out before he even knows what's happened." I glanced at the guy's partner in the back seat. He was grinning widely as he held up an old Richard Nixon mask. I realized the cameras would record Tricky Dicky, rendering them useless. Reluctantly, I pulled out my ID card and handed it to the guy along with the code. The man got out of the car, crossed the street, climbed into a Nissan Sentra, and drove off. I sat there with my blackmailer, his finger hovering ominously over the enter key. It felt like being next to a ticking time bomb. Nearly an hour later, the car returned. The guy was grinning broadly as he approached the Lincoln. "I've got it," he exclaimed. "These idiots are clueless. Let's get this to the boss." "You've got what you wanted. Now hand over the computer," I demanded, reaching for the laptop. "Oops," laughed the bastard as he deliberately hit the key. "That's a shame. I guess you don't need my laptop anymore. The damage is already done, a shole." I contemplated knocking the guy out cold when his buddy yanked open my car door and brandished a knife, motioning for me to step out. Keeping a careful eye on the guy with the knife, I slowly exited the car. He slammed the door shut and quickly scurried back to the Nissan before driving off with his accomplice. I briefly considered stepping in front of their car, not to halt their escape, but to put an end to this nightmare. I had naively trusted the jerk to keep his end of our agreement and not distribute the photos. Now I had to face the consequences. By the time I got back to my office, it was clear that life's big turbine was spinning into overdrive, flinging chaos directly at me. The speed of the internet made my old Jeep seem like a relic. Soon after entering my office, Janet, Josh's secretary, called. We got along well, and she always enjoyed chatting with Karen at company functions. Her concern was evident in her voice. "Fred, you need to come to the boardroom. It's about those pictures that were emailed to all the board members a while ago," she said cautiously. "I don't want to judge, but I can't believe you'd jeopardize your marriage. Karen adores you." "That's the issue, Janet. She loves me more than I deserve. I'll be there shortly," I replied. As I approached the boardroom, Janet flagged me down and directed me to a chair near her desk. "They asked me to have you wait here, Fred. Someone will call for you soon," she assured. "Do I know the woman in the photos?" I glanced at Janet and saw the image of me with the red head blown up on her monitor. The cowgirl's hair obscured most of her face, leaving just her smile visible. Admittedly, it was quite a smile. A good cowgirl's focus wasn't on maintaining perfect hair. "Do you spend much time in Vegas, Janet?" I asked. "If not, you probably don't know her." I ended up cooling my heels for almost half an hour. Janet seemed to take an unsettling amount of interest in the photos, examining them multiple times before making a call. I realized she found this scandal too juicy to keep to herself. She was likely sharing the photos with everyone she could. As I waited, my resentment grew darker and darker. Finally, Janet was signaled, and she turned towards me. "Go on in, Fred. Good luck, and don't let them push you around," she urged as I stepped through the door. Her words buzzed in my mind as I walked into the room, but seeing the board members' expressions snapped me back to reality. 7 people sat around the table. Josh and Victor were predictable presences, while the others, except one, were family. Victor's wife had passed away a few years ago, and her seat had been taken by their daughter, Jennifer. Josh's wife, Beatrice, was on his left. Completing the group were Josh's son, Victor's son, and the company's CFO, Benjamin Gonzalez. "Fred, we've called you here today to get your explanation for these photos and the subsequent blackmail incident," Josh said firmly. "We want to hear your perspective before we make any decisions." I took a moment, locking eyes with each person, recalling how I'd been advised to make these things personal, like a defendant addressing jurors. "Josh, as you know, I came to you the moment I realized there was a blackmail threat. I helped devise a plan quickly to ensure the company retained its secret to success and to identify who was behind the attempted theft," I explained. "That part was handled well, Fred," Josh acknowledged. "The firm you recommended has already reported progress. They're currently tracking these culprits. The fool actually stole my wife's recipe for a rather bitter drink she enjoys serving at Christmas. But the real issue here is what led to the blackmail in the first place. These photos are very troubling. You are a married man, and you were in Las Vegas representing this company." "I would argue that the photos were obtained illegally," I retorted. "They invaded my privacy and should not be taken into account. What I, or any of you, do behind closed doors is our own business, not subject to scrutiny by our employers, friends, or acquaintances." The issue is that we do know what you did behind closed doors, Fred, Victor countered. This is a family company with high, though not unreasonable, standards. We take marriage vows seriously. We cannot condone or turn a blind eye to such behavior with a lady of the night or whatever she was. It became clear that I couldn't sway them to disregard the photos based on privacy violations. Threatening a lawsuit would only get me shown the door faster. Their beliefs weren't grounded in legalities. Realizing this, I decided it was time to consult a lawyer for my options. I knew it would be a costly and contentious battle, and I had hoped for a more amicable resolution. I have nothing more to add, I said, readying myself to leave. Now, I must be. Just then, the door swung open and Janet walked in. This was highly uncharacteristic for her, and her obvious nervousness was palpable. I apologize for intruding on the meeting, but I couldn't forgive myself if I didn't at least try to help. I have Mrs. Allen here to speak with you. I was absolutely stunned when Karen entered the room confidently. She looked composed and elegant, despite her simple long coat and oversized handbag. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I have information that could clarify this situation and prevent a grave error, she declared. Mrs. Allen, Karen, said Josh kindly. We understand your distress, but this boardroom is not the place for personal grievances. We're sorry for this incident, but we need to proceed with our agenda. Your anger towards Fred is not something we need to address here. Angry at Fred, Karen chuckled. I adore him more than ever. You all know what a stellar employee, father, and husband he is. And now seeing these photos, you also know what an amazing lover he is. I rushed over to take Karen by the arm and lead her out, but she resisted, pulling away from me. Fred, you are a wonderful husband, but I need to do this. They deserve to know the truth, and I know you won't tell it, Karen insisted. I will. What exactly is the truth that Fred is withholding from us, Karen? Asked a very perplexed Josh Brooks. The truth is this. The woman in the photos is me. I had a seminar in Los Angeles the same week Fred was in Vegas. I arranged a one-night layover in Vegas to surprise him. It turned out to be one of the best layovers I've ever had, if you get my drift, Karen laughed, pointing to the photos on the table. In fact, I see some proof of it right there on your conference table. Wow. Did you buy some oceanfront property while you were in Las Vegas, Mrs. Allen? Questioned Benjamin Gonzalez. If we believe your story, we'd be likely to believe anything, wouldn't we? If you are the woman in these pictures, why didn't Fred just tell us from the start and avoid all this trouble? That's simple, Mr. Gonzalez, Karen responded. Fred is a genuine gentleman. He would sooner lose his job than cause me any embarrassment or humiliation. He's committed to sparing his family any pain. Janet called and said she suspected that I was the woman in the photos. I checked my email and realized the pictures were taken in our hotel room without our consent. Fred was prepared to face whatever consequences you imposed to protect me. That's the caliber of man this company should value. If that's the case, which I seriously doubt, why are you admitting to being the woman in red? Gonzalez retorted. Are you fabricating this story just to save his job? Why would you risk embarrassing yourself with such an outrageous claim? Again, Mr. Gonzalez, that's straightforward, Karen replied heatedly. I'm mortified that someone would stoop so low as to photograph my husband and me in an intimate moment. However, my love for my husband outweighs any personal embarrassment. I won't allow him to be maligned or insulted. He's a respectable man with an untarnished reputation and shouldn't have to endure this. How old are you, dear? Inquired Mrs. Beatrice Brooks. Karen turned her attention to Josh Brooks's wife. She paused for a moment before answering. Since we're laying it all out here, Mrs. Brooks, I'm 44 years old. I weigh 122 pounds, and I'm just an inch shy of 5.5 feet tall. With all due respect to the ladies here, the woman in these pictures is far younger than 44, scoffed Gonzalez. I'd wager the person in these photos isn't even 35. Before Gonzalez finished his sentence, I had grabbed him by his lapels and pulled him across the conference table. As I was about to throw a punch, Karen seized my arm. Fred, don't even think about it. He's only expressing his so-called facts. Let him go now, Karen commanded. I loosened my grip, allowing Gonzalez to slump back into his seat. It was clear my job was now in jeopardy. Mr. Gonzalez, I don't know how you would react to your wife being insulted in front of you, but I assure you that Fred won't tolerate it from you or anyone. He absolutely adores me, Karen declared, looking at me with pride. My dear, interjected Beatrice Brooks, I must say, both your loyalty to each other is commendable. However, Mr. Gonzalez does have a point, despite his rude delivery. You are 44 years old, and the woman in the photos appears significantly younger. Furthermore, her face is obscured in every shot, often covered by her hair. Karen reached into her bag, pulled out a red wig, and placed it over her blonde hair. The group at the table exchanged doubtful glances. It appears you do own a red wig, Mrs. Allen, Beatrice continued, but the age difference remains a significant issue. It's difficult for us to believe you are the woman in these photos. It's almost as though you are going to great lengths to protect your husband's position within our company. You have no idea the lengths I'd go for Fred, Mrs. Brooks, Karen retorted. Will you at least agree that if the woman in the pictures is indeed me, then Fred has done nothing wrong? He's actually protected your company from the theft of your formula at great personal cost and mockery. Can't a married couple enjoy each other privately, as depicted in these photos, without feeling ashamed? What if we had pictures of you and Mr. Brooks in an intimate moment? Could you deny that you'd be doing much the same? This isn't about Mr. Brooks and me, Beatrice said with a smile. I admit I would be quite uncomfortable if photos of my private life were spread around the internet, though perhaps less so if I looked as youthful as the woman in these photos. It seems we're at an impasse. I won't accept that, Karen asserted firmly. Fred is being accused of misconduct, but all he's guilty of is loving his wife. The so-called evidence accusing him of being with a cheap hooker consists of unclear photos. You can't even see my face in any of them because of this cheap wig I bought at Lax. You can't even tell it's me in the photo taken at the bar while I still had my clothes on. I was expecting this, Karen continued, pulling two enlarged photos from her handbag and placing them on the table. Look closely at the freckles on the left breast and the small tattoo. Now, compare them with these. I thought I had witnessed everything, but now everyone had. As Karen spoke, she swiftly unbuttoned her coat and let it fall from her shoulders. I stood there, torn between the urge to duck under the table, retrieve her coat, and cover her back up, or simply stand in awe. Seeing my wife in such a vulnerable state before others was entirely unprecedented. After 22 years of marriage, she had never appeared more captivating. Mr. Brooks, please examine the photos and then look at me. What is your conclusion, sir? Karen asked Victor Brooks, moving over to the table and positioning herself right in front of him. Mrs. Allen, Victor Brooks responded after what seemed like an unnecessarily long scrutiny. It's clear that you are indeed the woman in the photograph and a vision of beauty. Furthermore, in my opinion, we owe you and your fortunate husband, Mr. Allen, a considerable apology. These proceedings have unfairly subjected both of you to baseless accusations bordering on slander. I propose that this board formally apologize to Fred Allen, acknowledge his quick thinking in preserving our formula, award him a $5,000 bonus, as well as a 5% salary raise, he continued. Is there a second? The 6 remaining board members quickly voiced their agreement, and the motion passed unanimously. Karen hugged me tightly as Josh Brooks gently placed her coat back on her shoulders. His wife, Beatrice, waited for us to finish our embrace. My dear, it defies nature for a woman to look as stunning as you do at 44, or indeed at any age. I apologize for my initial skepticism, but had I not witnessed it myself, I wouldn't have believed our local third-grade teacher could transform so dramatically by simply wearing a wig and shedding her clothes. Your dedication to your husband and his evident respect and love for you are truly touching. It's unfortunate those photos of you are circulating. Though you look incredible, your face is thankfully unrecognizable in them. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.